Well, hello and welcome from Delhi. I'm Karin Giannone. We have had thunderstorms and rain. Now we've got firecrackers celebrating the BJP win. We're going to bring you up to date with the latest results from India all over the country. Let's talk about the bellwether state, though, of Uttar Pradesh. Again, these are made up of partial and declared counts for the 80 seats up for grabs for the state in the Indian Parliament. It is the most valuable state in electoral terms for any party. The BJP party and its coalition allies have an overwhelming majority with 61 seats. The INC or Congress and their allies just took one seat. Most of the rest of the parties we've grouped together as others also only have one seat. Now, here you will also see a group known as the Regional Alliance. These are a number of anti-BJP parties working together who took 17 seats. Let's talk to Yogita Limai, who is in the city of Varanasi in Uttar Pradesh. That happens to be Narendra Modi's constituency. Yogita, how well did he do?
Well, he won by a margin of 480,000 votes, Karin. And so this was a huge victory for him in his constituency. But it's something people here have been expecting. I'm here near the banks of the river Ganges, a place considered very sacred for Hindus. This city considered, almost a religious capital by Hindus. One of the reasons it was selected as Prime Minister Modi's constituencies in both 2014 and for this election. People I was speaking to here said that they had definitely voted for him because they believed he was a strong leader. They also talked about some of the improvements he had made for this city. So they were sort of quite confident of that resounding victory here today. But of course, the state you were pointing out, Uttar Pradesh, very important in Indian politics. They say that any party which can win a majority here, can form the government in Delhi because this state sends the most number of MPs to Parliament. So one of the reasons why they also chose this constituency for Prime Minister Modi, even though he actually comes from the western state of Gujarat, is because any national party would want their biggest face to contest from the most important state.
And he seems to have done even better than he did in 2014 in Varanasi. I mean, how present was he during the election campaign? He has a big country to cover.
Well, he filed his nomination papers here, obviously, so he visited the city at that point of time. In fact, actually, he's just put out a tweet saying that I thank the people of this city. They told me they're going to manage the campaign, after I filed my nomination papers, and manage they did, and that's the reason why I've won. But of course, in the state itself, it was a key focus for their election campaign. A large chunk of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's rallies were here in the state of Uttar Pradesh. Part of the reason was because two quite popular regional parties got together here, formed an alliance, which could have been a real threat to the BJP here in this state. But that hasn't turned out to be true. They've, as we're saying, they've won more than 60 seats here. And actually, it's sort of been a reverse story for one of the main opposition parties, the Congress. It's only about 150 kilometers from here, a town called Amethi that Rahul Gandhi, their main face, was contesting from. It's a sort of a family bastion for Rahul Gandhi. He comes from India's foremost political dynasty. And it's from that area that this family has been standing for elections from for a long time. But in his press conference today, he conceded defeat to a candidate from the BJP, Smriti Irani.
That is a fascinating detail. Yogita, thank you very much. Yogita Limai in Varanasi in Uttar Pradesh. Let's turn to what's been going on in West Bengal, a real political hotbed. These are made up of partial and declared counts for the 42 seats up for election in the state. As of a few minutes ago, the BJP and its coalition allies have 17 seats. The Congress party and its allies just 2, and the rest of the parties we've grouped together as others are on 23 seats. Let's talk to Rahul Tandon, who's in Kolkata. Rahul, how much of a political hotbed was it?
You asked Peter the question about how many rallies Mr. Modi did in Varanasi. Well, he didn't do that many there because he was constantly in the state of West Bengal. This was one of the places where they targeted. They didn't do well in the last elections. They just picked up 2 seats here. Now they're heading towards 17 or 18. And it was here that he also met one of his fiercest rivals, Mamata Banerjee, one of the biggest critics of the Modi government, what she says are its divisive policies for this country. But the people of Bengal, when I've been into the villages, have said they want to vote for Mr. Modi because they believe, even though unemployment is at such a high level, that he is the one person who can bring them jobs. And that's why their vote share here is 41%. And it's an important moment for India because the BJP then becomes not just a party in the north, in the Hindi heartlands, and in the west of this country, it becomes a player in the east of the country as well.
And Rahul, tell us about some of the incidents of violence we saw in recent days. One of them even brought the campaign to an early end there.
It did. The campaign in Kolkata was supposed to end on a Friday. It ended on a Thursday. Polling finished in India last Sunday. But even on Friday, even just the day before the results here, we had polling again in one booth because there had been so much violence here. And I think it shows you the passion, too much at times really, the fiercely contested part of India that this has become. And also there's a question that people are asking tonight as they go on their way home in the buses and the auto rickshaws. What has happened to the left here in India? This is the part of India where the communists ruled for so many years. And yet in this election, we have seen communists voting for Mr. Modi. People on the left are going to bed shaking their heads here, wondering whether they will ever be a political force, not just here in West Bengal, but across the whole of India as well.
Rahul, earlier in the week, you were reporting on some of the concerns over the new electronic voting system. Were all those fears laid to rest?
You know, I think it's been one of those interesting stories which the politicians, and in a way I think it shows you the problems that the opposition have had really with connecting with the people of India, something that Mr. Modi seems to do, at least with his Hindu core constituency, very easily. Because when I've been out talking to people in this city, as the results have been coming through, one of the questions I've asked is, are you concerned about those EVMs? Are you concerned about the fairness of this election? I haven't met anybody as yet who says they're worried. They think the Election Commission has done a good job. And they say that when the opposition won those state elections in Rajasthan, when they won them in Madhya Pradesh just a few months before these elections, there was no complaints then. So I think the EVMs, yes, there have been teething problems. There were those dramatic scenes, weren't there, when one politician in the first round of voting picked one up and smashed it on the floor. There have been concerns, but when 900 million people potentially are going to go to a ballot, you're going to have a few hiccups on the way.
Rahul, thanks very much. Rahul Tandon there in Kolkata, the capital of West Bengal, which has gone emphatically towards the BJP. But let's talk about their opponents, the Congress party, which has done so dismally. Aishwarya Mahadev is a spokesperson for Congress. She said she's disappointed about the outcome.
Extremely disappointed because we thought that 5 years of misrule and issues that really matter that were not touched upon. I really thought that the Congress party and the opposition, a united opposition, would have been able to change and ensure that the incumbent government doesn't come back. But I think that we failed. However, we respect the mandate of the people. You can't discredit that if people have overwhelmingly gone out and voted for the BJP, then you have to congratulate them on a campaign well run.
We'll come to what Congress did or didn't do in a minute, but are you surprised at the resounding success that the BJP has had this time again?
I think everybody is surprised with the sheer sort of numbers that are coming out, because so recently we had surgical strikes and, you know, this entire nationalist plank that was run. But before that,
on Pakistani territory after the attack in Pulwama.
Pakistani territory in Pulwama and the whole Balakot airstrikes. But the 5 years before that, you saw that, economic indicators showed you that India's growth rate was plummeting, even though the government changed the way we even calculate the GDP. You saw demonetization was one of the largest failures that you had, agrarian distress, drought and floods, and a government that seemed extremely apathetic to the issues, because the issues that Narendra Modi was talking about in 2014, he did not echo any of them in his election rally. He went on an us versus them narrative. He went on a larger Hindu Rashtra narrative. And that is where we're still disappointed, because if this is what is getting voters to vote for him, irrespective of the fact that there is no prosperity on the ground, that there's no growth, that there's no development, then that's very unfortunate. I think the people of India deserve better, to be very honest.
Why didn't Congress offer them better, offer them a more appealing prospect, so they would leave Narendra Modi and vote for you instead?
So I think the BJP has a very simple agenda, that they will try and unite the largest base common denominator of voters. In 2014, they ran the us versus them, an exclusionary minority, excluding minorities, that sort of campaign. The Congress party has never ever stood for an ideology that creates these barriers. The Congress ran an agenda very simply, that the Prime Minister is corrupt. Second, he promised you 100 different things. He delivered on none. Agrarian distress, jobs, poverty are the issues. That's what we spoke about. But tell me anywhere, right? Like even where you come from, the idea of Britain, Great Britain, the larger pride of the nation, that is an argument that resoundingly works everywhere. Especially it's India, Pakistan. Like you cannot go wrong with that strategy, because all the issues were forgotten.
So you think that the economic failings that Narendra Modi oversaw during those 5 years when he promised so much were just overlooked because people were motivated by nationalism?
Yes, like I'll give you an example. It's almost like when you all play the Ashes, or when we have an India versus Pakistan cricket match. Everything is forgotten. There's only one issue. And I think jobs and unemployment and the economic distress, you may not realize it, but in the 5-year term that they have now, you're going to see the sort of shock waves about that hitting everybody, even the most common man on the ground. And that is what is extremely scary and also disappointing.
That is Aishwarya Mahadev, who's a spokeswoman for Congress after those very disappointing results, and such a triumph for the BJP. Let's talk to Kaveri Bamsai, who's a journalist and author, and joins me now. What are you making of how all this happened?
Well, I think the BJP, and especially Prime Minister Modi, really had his finger on the pulse of the electorate. Because if you look at the way the women and young people voted for him, early trends show us that women and men were in equal percentage this time, for the first time in the history of India. So as many men voted as women did. And the first time voter, there were about 10 million of them who voted. And I think it was, their strategy was very clearly based on three things. One, of course, is Hindu majoritarianism, which everyone is talking about, and which is, of course, hateful, but it is a reality which we cannot run away from. Then progressive reforms, progressive economic reforms, which may have been badly implemented, but they are beginning to show results, and they will over a period of time. And I think most importantly, and that is where I think the women have voted for him, is in the welfare measures. There are specific schemes, many of them completely tailored for women, and they have really shown results on the ground.
On your second point,
yes,
economic reform. I mean, the economy is thought to be one of the weakest points, one of those things that the BJP has had to gloss over almost.
They had to, because there's a lot of politicization of data that's gone on, and I think BJP has been very suspicious in its handling of it. But the fact is that there are new kinds of jobs that are emerging. The Uber driver, the Swiggy delivery boy.
The gig economy.
The gig economy as we all know of it, which actually do not necessarily show up in numbers. And of course, critics here have laughed at it and called it pakoda economics, which is all about sort of street food hawkers. But the fact is that there are 10 million street food hawkers in India. So it's not exactly the kind of jobs that young people may necessarily want, but I think the whole idea that he's been able to tell them, the story that he's sold them of India, is one of a strong India, an aggressive India, which goes right into Pakistan and hits Pakistan, despite the fact that we still don't know how many people were killed in Balakot, you know. So that's what is important.
What could Congress have done differently? I mean, when we were speaking before we came on air, you were talking about the fact that the large number of young voters makes a big difference, that they aren't so bothered, they're not so nostalgic about the
Not
past
at all.
to think about the Gandhi dynasty.
Not at all. And in fact, you'll see it across the board, the number of second-generation politicians, especially those belonging to Congress, who've lost, and lost terribly, you know. And these are people who belong to illustrious families, including Rahul Gandhi losing from Amethi, which is really
His
the pocket...
constituency,
his constituency, his pocket borough, so to speak,
lost
which,
his seat, which is
of course, he's won from another seat in Kerala, which is the Congress stronghold. But the idea that of entitlement, the idea of anti-meritocracy, this is something that brand Modi stands so powerfully against, you know. The whole idea that a few families can rule India and I am the outsider who will sort of clean the swamp. It's a very Trumpian thing, you know. The Beltway comprises all these old fogies who've been in Washington for the longest time and I'm going to come in and sweep everything away. This is exactly what Modi has done and continues to do, which is so surprising that he can still play the outsider 5 years after he's been the ultimate insider. You know, he's the most powerful person in India. So I think that is what is so fascinating about brand Modi being much more powerful than brand BJP, the party that he is in.
Kaveri Bansai, thank you very much. Good to speak to you. Well, just to recap on the results, we can show you what they are. It's a resounding victory for Prime Minister Modi. As we were just hearing there, he has won the Indian election once again, as he did in 2014, with a massive landslide. But what does the future hold for Narendra Modi and this nation? Many would look to history books or perhaps an autobiography of India's leader for the answers. But there are others, many of them, who look upwards to the stars and beyond, using their powerful ability to allegedly predict the future in order to consider the fate of the nation. One of India's great tellers of the future, Deepa Sharma, joins me now. Deepa Sharma, thank you for coming by. Just tell us what you do.
Basically, I'm doing astrology and Vedic astrology. For Indian politics,
astrology?
Yes, Vedic astrology. Vedic astrology and Western astrology is totally different. So we are working on Vedic astrology, which is in Hindu mythology. So basically, I did many predictions on politics, and mostly we are doing this thing.
That is fascinating, and I mean, this is something taken very seriously by a large number of politicians, that they come to people like you to find out how to make decisions and what is in store for them and their country.
Not only politicians, if we are talking about any famous personality, the spokesperson, the businessman, the industrialist, and the film actors also, they are consulted with us that we will do or not this project and we will win this time, or we get success this time or not. So they will continuously taking the advice with us.
Tell us what you tell them, and how do you find out the information that you give them?
Okay, so astrology is not as to superstitions. First thing I would like to tell you, this is totally science. If doctor can't tell you where in your body exactly this disease will happen, but an astrologer can easily predict that in this part, in this timing, you will get this disease. So this is very easy for you. If you read, if you predict well, if you practice well, then you can predict everything about a person,
really?
About a politician. Yes, really. Yes, really.
And what sort of things are you predicting about politicians?
Yes, lots of things we predict Indian politics. Last time, 2014 election time, we predict so many politicians. In fact, we have clients which are means very big post, in politics.
I know you can't say any names or divulge any secrets,
sorry,
but on
I can't disclose.
level.
I can't disclose the names, but definitely they will touch with us, and they will continuously taking advice with us.
And do they feel that they can change the prediction? Can they act in any way to if it's something bad, to try and avoid that happening to them or their constituents?
No, we can't change our statements, because this time, like BJP win this game, we can say, so we predict earlier. We predict earlier because Modi's planetary position now in transit going very good. So we can say this time we are not talking about BJP, we are talking about only Modi, PM Narendra Modi. So his stars going very high and Raj Yoga Dasha is going on. So we can predict easily.
How long will it remain high for, his planetary position? Can you
this
tell?
time, this 5 years, and after 5 years we can say now, because after 5 years his Dasha is change. So might be that will be changed, the decision, but this time we definitely predicted that yes, Modi will come 100%.
Deepa Sharma, thank you very much, Vedic astrologer.
Thank you.
So Narendra Modi's planetary position will remain high for at least 5 years, we predict here. More in just a few minutes' time here on Global.